各位委員下午
Members, good afternoon. It's the appointed time. We have a quorum. This is the panel on security meeting. Item number 1, information papers issued since last meeting. Since the last meeting, the Secretariat has not received nor issued any information paper. Item 2, items for discussion at the next meeting. In CB bracket 2773 of 2025 bracket 1, list of outstanding items for discussion, and paper bracket 2773 of 2025 bracket 0102, that is the list of follow-up actions. You will see the information thereon. The next regular meeting will take place on the 3rd of June at 2:30 in the afternoon. There are 2 items for discussion. One, developing the next generation communications system, which is relating to a funding proposal. The second item is the youth development work of the Security Bureau and its departments. They are items 1 and 2 in the list. Members, any other views? You agree? Then these 2 items will be discussed in the meeting on the 3rd of June. We will discuss these 2 items in the June regular meeting. The first item, that is the next generation communications system, is a funding proposal. We will invite all members to take part in the discussion of this item. Next, item 3, Directorate post creation proposal in the Commissioner's Office responsible for the implementation of the Protection of Critical Infrastructures Computer Systems Ordinance. We now invite government representatives from the Security Bureau to come in to join us. This is related to an establishment proposal, so all members are invited to take part in the discussion. Members, please note the requirements under Rule 83 of Rules of Procedures. If there is any direct or indirect pecuniary interest with the items under discussion, members may not move any motions or amendments. In relation to speaking, unless the member has disclosed the nature of the interest, members may speak on it. So if there is any direct or indirect pecuniary interest with the items under discussion, members please disclose the nature of the interest before you speak. We have provided a background information of this item. It is bracket 04. And the information paper is bracket 03. We have with us Mr. Chris Tang, Secretary for Security, Ms. Vinci Chen, Principal Assistant Secretary, as well as Assistant Director, Mr. Francis Chan. Good afternoon. Let's hear first from the Secretary. We seek to create 3 direct posts in the Office of the Commissioner of Critical Infrastructure Computer System Security to implement the Protection of Critical Infrastructures Computer Systems Ordinance, the Ordinance for short. The Ordinance seeks to protect the computer systems of critical infrastructures, CIs, and minimize the chance of essential service relating to energy, transportation, communications, and financial services, as we are more reliant on these systems. If these systems are compromised due to cyber attack, people's lives and economic security activities will be affected. In March 2025, the Legislature passed the ordinance imposing 3 categories of statutory obligations on designated operators of CIs, namely Category 1 organization obligations, Cat 2 preventive obligations, and Cat 3 incident reporting and response obligations in order to protect these systems and maintain normal functioning of our society and the normal life. Under the ordinance, the Commissioner's office is to be established. The office is in charge of assisting the Commissioner to compile a code of practice, to monitor compliance, to respond to cyber attacks, and handle restoration of systems, as well as enforcement and investigation. We need a high-quality team to take up these duties. As a result, we propose the creation of 3 directorate posts, namely 1 rank grade commissioner, and 2 and 1 supernumerary time limited post of chief systems as deputy commissioner, and 1 time limited post of deputy commissioner, leading 12 professionals. In the office, there are 32 staff members. The commissioner will be the leader. The leader must have excellent cybersecurity expertise, international exposure, law enforcement experience, and strategic management capability. They should also be familiar with standards and operations of critical infrastructures, to accurately identify CI operators, and to come up with the code of practice. The Commissioner also needs to keep abreast of the latest international threat trends and protective measures to make sure that the framework is in line with global standards. The Commissioner is also the leader of the team that responds to cyber attacks, as well as to assist CI operators to restore the systems. The Commissioner also must have political sensitivity and communication skills, because they have to communicate with CI operators. They also need to strike a balance between operation of these systems and safety of the systems. As a result, we need someone with relevant experience and knowledge. As a result, we set the post at D3 rank. This is reasonable. We have strike a balance between the duties, functions, as well as and resources allocation. The Commissioner is also accountable to the Secretary for Security via the Permanent Secretary. At the beginning of the implementation of the ordinance, the office will have to put in place a brand new system, identify CI operators, check their computer systems and the importance of the core systems before they decide whether to designate these systems to regulate them. The work is of utmost importance. As a result, we propose to create 2 deputy commissioner posts that are time limited. They are to cover compliance and operations. The Deputy Commissioner Compliance will assist the Commissioner to develop the code of practice and to monitor compliance. It should be a professional that is familiar with cyber security. We propose that a chief system manager, that is someone who is at D1, to take up this post from the Digital Policy Office. The Deputy Commissioner Operations is in charge of regulating CI operators, help CI operators restore the running of the systems, as well as investigation. We propose to have someone who is a chief superintendent of the police to fill the post, and that is someone that is D1 equivalent. The average staff remuneration will be about $10 million. We will continue to review the work of the deputy commissioners to see if the work can be shared by others. For details, please refer to the information paper we have sent you. The 3 directorate posts is of utmost importance to the implementation of the ordinance. We ask for your support. Thank you. There are now 7 members waiting to speak. Each member will have 5 minutes, question and answers included. Let me read out their names. Gary Chan, Kisan Yeung, Chaman Kwong, Lai Tong Kwok, Edmund Wong, Doreen Kong, Benson Lok. We'll start with Mr. Gary Chan. Thank you. In principle, I support the creation of posts in the office of the Commissioner. I have some issues for clarification. Specifically, what expertise must the Commissioner have? Well, it says under paragraph 6 that the Commissioner must have excellent cybersecurity expertise, international exposure, management capabilities, as well as political sensitivity. These expertise may not be in possession of someone who is outside discipline services or the police. We need professionals. Are you going to have an in-service recruitment or try to identify them from public organizations or in the private sector? Can I have more information? There are just over 30 people in the office. It may be smaller than a standard department. But now we talk about freezing of the establishment or trimming of the establishment. How do you ensure that the office will be enough to fulfill the duty of ensuring cybersecurity? Can these 32 posts be filled by secondment or deployment from other government departments to save us from having to create 30 or so other posts? Because in this way, we will have sufficient manpower to run the office to ensure cybersecurity without creating additional posts. There are two questions. First, how do you go about with your recruitment? And two, how do you fill these proposed posts in the office? Thank you. I have listed out a number of qualities that the Commissioner should have, namely cybersecurity expertise, international exposure, law enforcement experience. The last one is not necessarily someone who was in the discipline service. It's just that they need to have such knowledge. There are two deputies. One is in charge of compliance, the other one with operations. They will assist the Commissioner. So I think that all these qualities are required. This will be an open recruitment. And it's not necessarily someone who comes from a discipline service. We think that in large corporations, there are similar posts. Large corporations attach importance to cybersecurity as well. And some of these people have worked very closely with discipline services. I think there is a sufficient pool of candidates. They may be civil servants or someone from the private sector. The other question is about the 32 posts. 11 of them are seconded from the police. So there is no additional resources involved. There are 10 NCSC staff members. The resources come from the Security Bureau. There is no additional resources involved. Only 11 civil servants posts involved additional resources. One is the Commissioner, two are the Deputy Commissioners. The Commissioner is not a civil servant. The other two will be someone from the Digital Policy Office, namely Chief Systems Manager, and the other one is Chief Superintendent of Police. The remaining 8 will be creation of civil service posts. So only 2 involves additional resources. we have struck a balance between the use of resources and need for cybersecurity. We've considered secondment from other departments. In relation to the Deputy Commissioner Operations, who is the Chief Superintendent of the police, well, we have a Chief Superintendent overseeing cybersecurity, including that of critical infrastructures. We have weighed things up. We think that in order to have better protection of critical infrastructures for the first 3 years, we need a new post instead of having the duties taken up by someone who's overseeing other things. We will keep in view if the duties can be taken up by the commissioner or his subordinates after 3 years.
Next, Mr. Yang Wen-kit, Deputy Chairman. I have 2 questions. First, to follow up on the other question on recruitment, the ordinance will come into operation in July this year. It's just a few months from now. And then we will obtain funding after the ordinance comes into effect. And soon we should be able to recruit someone. If we can't recruit someone, will we have a plan B? Will we have internal deployment, or will we engage headhunters? That's my first question. And the second question is that the commissioner will be recruited openly. I believe the candidate should fit our requirements in terms of security, but then the commissioner will need to deal with much sensitive information. Once that commissioner leaves, how can we make sure they won't disclose such data or sell such data? This would be illegal, of course, but how can we prevent that in the first place? Thank you. Secretary, thank you. We will start our recruitment in July after we have done our process. And we have gauged the situation. We believe we have many potential candidates available in the market. If we can't recruit someone in the first round, we will engage a headhunter or headhunters. But I think it is unlikely that we will need to resort to that. As the member said, the position would have someone deal with much sensitive information, so an integrity check is definitely necessary. And according to Section 57 of the Ordinance, there is some confidentiality requirement. We will also put in place a period in which one cannot, for a period of time, work in a similar position, or it would require some sort of approval to make sure there is no conflict of interest. Thank you. Any follow-up questions? If not, please proceed. Professor Chairman Kong. Thank you. 1 or 2 months ago, we passed the Protection of Critical Infrastructures Computer Systems Bill, and I think with member support, it is more likely than not members will also support the staffing proposal, and the establishment will be 32 staff members, and some of the posts will be deployed through internal resources. But we have seen in the past week in Spain and Portugal, there was a large-scale power outage. We can see how important maintaining critical infrastructure operations is. It's not just about the cost. We need to make sure we can maintain the supply of such critical infrastructure operations. So how can we make sure that can happen? And as Mr. Yang Wing-kit said, it's not just the commissioner. I think there should be confidentiality requirements for all staff members of the commissioner's office. What is the government's plan in relation to this? Thank you. Secretary. Thank you. The member mentioned recently there was a large-scale power outage in Spain and Portugal, and what are we to do if something like this happens? Or how can we prevent this? We are mainly focusing on computer system operations. If the incident is related to a computer system, we will make sure to, as quickly as possible, restore the operations of the computer system concerned, and the Deputy Commissioner Operations will be responsible for this. But there are incidents not related to computer systems, but let's assume it is related to a computer system. We have 32 staff members in the establishment, and honestly, I don't think we can only rely on the staff members in the office. We do have the support of the police force. The staff in the office are, of course, possess the relevant expertise, but we can always rely on the emergency support of the police force. For the standards of the system, and if we need further system support, we can have the support of the Digital Policy Office. So we do not rely solely on the 32 staff members of the Commissioner's Office. As for confidentiality, as said in Section 57 of the Ordinance, there is supposed to be preservation of secrecy. We will make sure to provide training and directions to staff members. If necessary, we'll sign confidentiality agreements with the staff members depending on their specific work. We will also have integrity checks. I believe these are adequate safeguards. Thank you, Professor Chow. Any other questions? I think what Professor Chow said is very much valid. For the 32 staff members, it shouldn't be just the commissioner, that there should be some sort of confidentiality requirement. And the secretary said there will be some sort of agreement put in place, and I appreciate that. Mr. Lai Tong Kwok, the topic we're discussing today is very important. I would like to first say I support the Security Bureau's proposals to create the 3 directorate posts. You will have an establishment of 32 staff. I actually have some doubts on this. So for the 32 staff members, only 4 of them are clerical staff, 1 personal secretary to support the commissioner. There are 3 other ones, 1 chief executive officer, and then there are the executive officer 1 as well as an assistant clerical officer. That is more than it. That is it, and that will support the office. But then you'll have to promulgate codes of practice later on. Do you have adequate clerical support? And according to Annex 1, the organization chart, I honestly think there is not clerical support for the other staff members. If you do not have adequate clerical support, what will happen? What will you do? You will have government councils in your office. You will also have some police force officers who are experienced in investigation. So if you are to initiate prosecution, will the work of prosecution be taken up only by the staff in this office, or will you refer the case to the police force and then you will consult the Department of Justice? I also want to ask the Secretary. You said you will have some police force officers seconded to the office. And then there will also be some posts deployed through internal resources. So for the 11 police officers, they will be seconded from the Hong Kong police force. These will not be counted towards those posts deployed through internal resources, right? So essentially, you will be applying for additional funding for the other posts that are not deployed through internal resources. The commencement of the ordinance will be 1st of January 2026. You will have 6 months from July, right? Do you think 6 months will be enough for you to do everything, including the integrity checks, for the commissioner to start their work on 1st of January 2026? Thank you, Secretary. We have tried to strike a balance. Of course, we want more clerical staff if possible, but we have gauged the situation. We believe 4 should be enough. Most of the operational work will be done by the professionals. We believe the clerical staff we have should be enough. If there are people found to have breached the provisions in the ordinance, or if they engage in terrorism activities or have dishonestly used computer, in the end the prosecution will go through the police force and the DOJ. We will only have the commissioner's officer staff do the preliminary stage work. For the 11 officers seconded from the Hong Kong police force, the positions will be technically moving from the Hong Kong police force to the commissioner's office, and the digital policy office officer posts, these will be created. We are seconding the positions from the police force because they are already working on critical infrastructure related work. But for the Digital Policy Office, they do not have staff members currently working on critical infrastructure, which is why the posts will be created. The time will be tight from July to January, but I think that will be enough. The Digital Policy Office is making preparations. We will be hiring for 3 posts. The seconding from the Hong Kong police force is on the way, and the other positions preparations are also on the way. We may be lacking in some way in the beginning, but we should have enough to start our operations, Mr. Edmund Wong. I think the division of work is clear. We will have one working in compliance. The other deputy commissioner will be working in operations. I want to ask if there is some sort of collaboration between the 2 deputy commissioners. So will we have coordination in the sense that the findings made by Deputy Commissioner Operations will be transfer to Deputy Commissioner Compliance for further feedback. How can we make sure there is proper coordination in the promulgation of codes of practice to make sure they are targeted? Thank you.
Secretary, there are 2 deputy commissioners. One is for compliance, the other one is for operations. There is a division of labor. Each will take up different sets of duties, but they work together and they support each other. The deputy for compliance will develop the code of practice based on their expertise and input from the operations staff. Similarly, the deputy for operations will also need to know what standards there are under compliance in order to formulate drills and exercises. So the 2 will support one another and cooperate with one another. There won't be any silos mentality involved. Mr. Rincon, I support the creation of the posts. The ordinance has been passed. Of course, we want it to be implemented effectively. My question, firstly, is about the qualification requirements. I understand the need for expertise in investigation and execution. But regarding this office, the identification and prevention of risks is important too. I've drawn reference from other places. The person holding the post will also have knowledge about technology as well as engineering, not just investigation. The bill may be about computer systems, but the commissioner should have certain knowledge about the operation of the different sectors. Otherwise, it will be an outsider trying to regulate practitioners. So the commissioner will need to know about the operation of some sectors. Secretary, are you confident that there is a sufficient pool of candidates? At the inception of the establishment of the office, I do understand that the 2 deputies will have their own areas of work. Do you think that is more important to assist CI operators to put in place code of practice? So I think at the beginning that it is a high chance that the 2 deputies will be working together. Mr. Lai Tongkuo asked a very valid question. If you start recruitment in July, we only have 2 months left. For someone who's already holding a high-level post in their own companies, then there is a need for a long notification period, and there may be a need for sanitization period as well. So are you sure that you'll be able to recruit someone in time? Secretary, we do agree that the commissioner needs to have expertise on technology as well. Without this expertise, the commissioner will not be able to supervise the compliance work. That's why I said the commissioner must possess cybersecurity expertise and is conversant with the operation of critical infrastructures as well as standards and operations. Well, maybe I have somehow highlighted the qualification of law enforcement experience. Others are equally important. The post holder does not necessarily have to be from the civil service. As long as is someone that is of the right requirements, then they can fill the post. One of the duties is risk assessment, which is also an important part of the work. We believe that there is a sufficient pool of talents. operations and compliance are equally important. Of course, at the beginning, compliance is important because a framework has to be put in place. A code of practice will have to be formulated, but at the same time, we need to ensure that the existing systems have sufficient safeguard and that there are contingency and response plans in place in addition to drills, because cyber attacks can happen anytime. They won't wait for the establishment till the establishment of the office. So the different parts of work will be carried out in tandem. Now turning to recruitment. There may be a chance that the post may not be filled in January. We have to go through the procedure. We have to come to LegCo asking for support for the creation of posts. We try to compress the process. Say, for example, in relation to the checking, we will compress it to identify the right candidate. And as I said, if there are hiccups, we still have the 2 deputy commissioners, one from the police, the other one from the Digital Policy Office. The 2 deputies will be able to hold the fort when the post of the commissioner is vacant for the operation of the office. Anything else? No? Next, Mr. Benson, look. I was a member of the Bills Committee of the Critical Infrastructure Bill. Of course, I would like the ordinance to be effectively implemented. Well, if the posts are not filled, then it's very difficult to support the effective implementation of the ordinance. That's why we support the creation. But I have some questions in Annex 1 in relation to the area under the Chief System Manager. There are 12 people involved in computer work. The office oversees computer systems of all critical infrastructures in Hong Kong. There are only 12. Is it enough? Or is it the case that you will engage contractors to assist the work? That's my first question. 2. In paragraph 5, it says that out of the 32 staff members, 21 of them will be seconded internally. That means 11 of them will be recruited. When it comes to people from open recruitment, I have some concern because the work involved national security and sensitive information, so the checking should be more vigorous than post holders of other departments. In addition to the integrity checking, will there be additional requirements on the post holders, say that they have to take an oath or they can't hold passport of another country? Well, there is the Bills Committee on Building Energy Efficiency. National security was mentioned. Under the bill, organizations and buildings will have to conduct building energy audits. There is an exemption. If consideration of national security is involved, the relevant authorities may waive the audit. Well, will the same thing apply in this office? There are 3 questions. First, the 12 program analysts. Of course, if they are the only ones, that will not be enough. But then, critical infrastructure computer systems have their own staff members ensuring compliance and operation. So it's not the staff members of the commissioner that actually conducts the operation solely on them. We have 3 directorate posts, 8 to be newly recruited and involving additional resources. Some of them are legal professionals, and the programmer, no, 11 of them will be seconded from the police. 11 will be new posts. 3 are the directorate posts today. 8 are civil servants, 4 clerical staff members, and 4 from Digital Policy Office. And we also have NCSC staffs, 2 legal staff members, and 4 program analysts. The NCSC staff members will have to take the oath. They will have to go through checking. National security risks will be covered in the checking. The third question is, well, the audit exemption under building energy bill, if national security is involved, then there is an exemption. Yes, there will be an exemption if national security is involved. So I believe that because of the nature of the work, there will be exemptions too. I'd like to have to seek a clarification. Taking the oath, all 32 people in the office. Yes. Well, for existing civil servants, they have already taken the oath. I was talking about those who newly joined the office from outside the civil service. Ms. Elizabeth Kwok. I strongly support the creation of the posts in the Commissioner's office. These personnel are very important in the implementation of the ordinance. I have some concerns. I am aware that there are suitable candidates, but if they have to leave their job, they have to go through the checking, and then they have to take up office. It takes time. The Secretary will have to make sure that no time is lost in the recruitment. Well, there is the power outage in Portugal and Spain. There are also issues with critical infrastructures in other places as well. It's very important that the general public obtain accurate information, and that resumption of normal functioning of society is equally important. It says in the information paper that the Commissioner will have to lead a cross-departmental team to coordinate and respond to incidents. This is no easy job. I believe that you need the support of technology. There is a common platform within the government. Whenever there are natural disasters, say typhoons or torrential rain, then the platform will be triggered to coordinate government departments' work. So, my concern is if the position is high enough to lead a cross-departmental coordination team. Will the COP, that is the common platform, be used? Because currently it's only used in inclement weather. I think the use of the platform is very important. Time's tight. We know that during the scrutiny of the bill that the code of practice is very important. we want to know about the progress of the formulation of the COP. What is the discussion with the trade?
Secretary. Well, we do have some work to do after tabling the commencement notice. We will try to make sure all preparations are done before January next year. The member also mentioned the power outage in Spain and Portugal. With incidents like these, there are two levels that we have to consider. One, we have to consider whether there have been attacks on related computer systems. And if there are attacks on the systems, we need to think about how we are going to restore operations and protect the system from further attacks. That is what the commissioner will work on. But apart from doing work related to the incidents, there will be, say, fear among citizens if there is a disruption to operations. There may be outlaws conducting robberies and whatnot. And I think this will be on the level of society disruptions, and that will go beyond the scope of the work of the commissioner themselves. If there are threats to society in general, we will rely on the Emergency Coordination Center. The chief executive also has a steering committee to deal with emergencies like such. So it won't just be the commissioner leading us in our work against the attacks in this regard. We have the whole of government. And what about the question on codes of practice? Well, the commissioner will be leading the work in the promulgation of codes of practice in future, but we are making preparations. I believe you are already liaising with stakeholders on the promulgation of the codes of practice, right? Right, before the ordinance will come into operation, we have been already liaising with stakeholders to allow the stakeholders to have a basic understanding of what the codes of practice will entail. We will also have legal professionals drafting the relevant codes of practice. The commissioner, once they start their work, they need to make sure the codes of practice are of very high standards so as to achieve our policy intent. Thank you. Mr. Tan Ka-Pu, I support the ordinance and by extension the staffing proposal. While the ordinance was being drafted, I understand that there have already been communication with stakeholders. I also need to declare that I am a director of the Chinese University Medical Center. I believe the center will be a CI operator. I want to ask, however, how can we make sure we have CI operators complying with the relevant standards? Do you expect some CI operators not being able to meet the relevant standards? What are your plans for those operators? You will have integrity checks conducted. I have confidence in the Bureau in conducting the relevant assessments. I just want to ask, after the integrity checks, how many viable candidates will we have, at least in your estimation? Also, do you have plans for further drills on possible scenarios? If you do have such plans, can you disclose some details? Thank you. Secretary. As for whether we expect the CI operators to be able to comply with the relevant standards, most of them are large organizations, and computer system security is already part of their operations. They already have staff working in such security, but of course there may be differences in the standards adopted. We have communicated with stakeholders. We found out that it shouldn't be hard for the organizations or the potential CI operators to meet the relevant standards. Most of the potential operators are more than willing and have the capability of meeting the relevant standards. We have gauged what is available in the market, and we believe we have some viable candidates. The work is, of course, challenging. We have gauged the interest of potential candidates. We do note there are a number of candidates who are very interested in the position, and they also have this pride that they are more than willing to serve in this position. As for whether we have proper standards in the police force, well, we already have the police force officers working in such work. It's just that there are no formal standards. But if something happens, we are going to deal with such instances with set procedures. Thank you. Well, I want to ask if you will conduct drills. Well, we are already doing regular drills with the Digital Policy Office for computer attacks. As I said earlier, we already have some officers participating in drills in relation to critical infrastructures. But in future, of course, the drills will become of larger scale and more systematic. Well, the member mentioned a specific institution that may be a CI operator, but you have not designated any CI operators, right? Well, we do have 8 sectors, and we will not publicize the CI operators in future for security purposes. But people can speculate however they want, of course. Thank you. Mr. Ma Fengkuo. I very much support the ordinance as well as creating the office to support the operations of the ordinance. The Secretary talked about how there will be drills, but I think we, of course, don't want incidents to happen in the first place. And I think we have to anticipate the worst case scenario. We may have failure of multiple CI operators, and it may be across industries. When we have multiple CI operators in different sectors attacked, how can we make sure the commissioner and the office's staff will be able to deal with large-scale incidents? I also want to ask, I understand in the mainland they have very advanced computer systems. Will we have some sort of mechanism or collaboration with the mainland in the sense that if there are insurmountable challenges that cannot be overcome, operations that cannot be restored in a short period of time, can we have backup support from the mainland so that when it is that bad, we can have operations restored as soon as possible? Thank you, Secretary. If there are large-scale incidents with multiple CI operators failing, I said indeed the establishment would only have 32 staff members, but I also mentioned how we do not rely solely on the office when there are such incidents. We have the support of the police force. We also have the support of the Digital Policy Office. If it is really bad, we can also engage other organizations such as Hong Kong CERT. We will have contingency plans. If the permanent staff cannot deal with the incident alone, we always have support of other parties. As for whether we have been communicating with industries and specific computer security or cybersecurity trade, we do. We have also been working with other jurisdictions on this. We are communicating with the specific international bodies. We have actually regular exchanges with the international bodies. If we can learn from their experience, it would be ideal. As for if there is a disruption in general to the operations of society, the Commissioner's Office will make sure to have some sort of contingency plan. If the permanent staff cannot restore operations of the system on their own, there will be activation of such contingency plans. Thank you. Dr. Johnny, we are faced with a rising threat of cybersecurity. I think the administration completing the drafting of the critical infrastructure bill very early on, and we will soon recruit a commissioner. I note that the cost that would include the staff costs in general, it would amount to approximately $10 million. We do have a shortage of cybersecurity professionals, and the commissioner would have to have excellent cybersecurity expertise, international exposure, law enforcement experience, and strategic management capability. Now, with this amount in salaries, is this attractive for us to recruit someone good? We will have deputy commissioners working in compliance and operations, and these will be time-limited posts. And in future, the administration's plans is to gauge whether the work can be taken up by the commissioner or the staff below. So will the administration have any plans to train the relevant professionals or the commissioner to take up the work of the deputy commissioners after 3 years? Thank you, Secretary. Whether the remuneration is attractive enough to recruit a good candidate, well, the D3 level salary is attractive in the market. But we would say this often with such posts. What is attractive is not just with the remuneration. We also want the post to be attractive in the sense that it would attract someone with determination to serve in the government, someone with commitment to carry out the work related to protection of critical infrastructure. So we do want to provide a reasonable remuneration, but we also want to provide prospects as well as a vision for the candidates. The deputy commissioners' posts will be time limited. We're not saying we will let the posts lapse necessarily after 3 years. We note that in the first 3 years, the deputy commissioners' work will be heavy. They need to promulgate the codes of practice. They also need to plan for and conduct drills. They also need to make contingency plans. We believe after 3 years, however, the work, the operations should be running smoothly, because the critical infrastructures would have already been designated. And I think then will be a good time for us to see what we'll do with the posts, with the work of the posts, whether the work can be taken up by the staff below the deputy commissioners, or will part of the work be taken up by the commissioner. We do not expect to train people within the 3 years. It's just that after 3 years, we are at the 3-year mark. We will look at whether the deputy commissioners' posts will still be justified, whether the work can be taken up by other people. Thank you.
It's my turn. I was the chairperson of the Bills Committee. I strongly support your proposal. The ordinance is complicated. The 8 sectors have confirmed that they've been in close liaison with the Security Bureau. They are involved in the initial stage of the formulation of the COP. This is an important piece of work. So I support the creation of permanent posts. Well, if you say that the deputy commissioners are going to be permanent posts, then I will support that, because it will show the determination to implement the ordinance well. But I understand that you will have to take into account the civil service establishment, and there are other factors. That's why you want to have them created as a time-limited posts at the beginning, that is for 3 years. You mentioned about a preparatory office. It may not be an actual office. Some of the work has already started, partly taken up by the police. The commissioner is in charge of a number of duties before the post holder takes office. What is your plan? Well, you have to recruit someone of the right caliber. You have to have the person go through vetting. You have to make sure that the person has the right mentality and is capable of protecting our critical infrastructure systems before we have the commissioner. So who's doing the work? You yourself, together with the permanent secretary, as well as the relevant teams. I believe that the formulation of the COP is in progress. Different sectors may have their own specific COP as well. So what's your plan? Well, there is also a timetable for designation of critical infrastructures. The ordinance will take effect on the 1st of January 2026. You said that on that very same day, the commissioner and deputy commissioners will take office. I want to know about your overall plan. Another area is that, well, things may happen. They don't wait till your office is ready. Well, I'm also aware of the power outage of Spain. At first, people said that it had nothing to do with cyber attack, but then later, someone said that it might be due to cyber attack. I think that you have to first handle restoration of systems and normal functioning of the systems before you carry out any investigations. What is your planned cooperation with the 8 sectors? Secretary. First, in relation to our transitional arrangements. As the chairperson pointed out, the Security Bureau, including the Permanent Secretary, Ms. Wong, has already started the work with their team. There are people seconded from the police and the Digital Policy Office. They will take office. Persons in charge of duties under the Security Bureau will move the duties to the preparatory office and then to the Commissioner's office. That is the transitional arrangement. The aim is to set up the office on the 1st of January next year. Our plan is that 6 months afterwards, we will, by phases, designate critical infrastructures. We do not do it in one go. So you will start the designation in the second half of 2026. We aim to start the designation from the 1st of June. Well, when everything is ready, we will start the designation on the 1st of June. In the event that the commissioner post is not taken up before that, we still have time, because we will actually need the commissioner when the designation is made. There are deputies. One of them is a civil servant. So there is no problem with the deputy commissioner taking office on the 1st of January. If need be, the deputy can act the post of the commissioner. Well, if we need to exercise the power of the commissioner, then acting is an alternative. You also ask about how we handle incidents. Currently, response is done by the Cybersecurity and Technology Crime Bureau of the Police, as well as the Digital Policy Office. Recently, there was an incident in the government. It was handled. When we have the dedicated office, the incidents will be handled even better because it will be done more systematically. Ms. Doreen Kong would like to ask a second round. 3 minutes. Thank you. I have 2 follow-up questions. Well, the ordinance is Protection of Critical Infrastructures Computer Systems Ordinance. When it comes to incidents, it may not involve just computer systems. It may involve the environment, weather, and the management of the company. if the cause of the incident is not known, say the example of what happened in Spain, or if there are multiple causes, not just something to do with computer systems. Will it affect the work of the Commissioner's office? Will they have sufficient capability and information to handle the incident? Sometimes it's more to do with computer systems. Would it be a case that they realize at that time that they don't have the power, or they find it difficult to work with other departments? The other question is about international cooperation. The commissioner is an important post because the work involves international cooperation and communication. The level of the commissioner, is it high enough for the person to engage in international cooperation and communication? Secretary. Well, we may not know whether an incident something to do with computer systems. We will first assume that it's something to do with that and then carry out investigation. And if it's found out after investigation that it's nothing to do with computer systems, say for example is that cables have broken, then it's more to do with engineering than computers, then we will refer the case to the relevant area. That won't be the case that something happens and no one is in charge. We want to have the commissioner taking up the coordination work at a high level to handle incidents involving computer systems and possibly more than that. We don't just look at computer systems. The commissioner may be involved in incidents involving engineering or even the weather. You asked about international cooperation. The post pitch at D3 is a right choice, having balanced the use of resources. Of course, the higher the rank, the better. But we think that the post pitch at D3 is sufficient. There are other commissioners that are D3. We have considered the duties as well as the use of resources and decided on this approach. Thank you. Any other questions? If not, that is the end of the discussion of this item. Members expressed an unanimous view that the proposal is to be forwarded to the Establishment Subcommittee for further consideration. You agree? Thank you. That's the end of this item. Now we move on to item 4. Replacement of very high-frequency radio communication system for Maritime Rescue Coordination Center of Marine Department. Please invite the government representatives to come in. This is a funding proposal. Other members have been invited to take part in the discussion of this item. Members, please note that under Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedure, members may not move any motions or amendments or speak on the item if there is a direct or indirect pecuniary interest with the item under discussion unless they have disclosed the nature of the interest. If members would like to speak on the item where they have a direct or indirect pecuniary interest, please disclose the nature of the interest before you speak. We have Mr. Michael Chuck, Under Secretary for Secretary. The paper number is CB-2773 of 2025-01. Members, if you'd like to ask questions, please press the button. Mr. Chuck. My team and I are here to seek members' view in relation to the replacement of our system. In 2024 policy address, it's mentioned that Hong Kong must tap into our advantage of one country, two systems and strengthen our position as a shipping center. Hong Kong is one of the busiest ports in Hong Kong. In 2024, we have over 100,000 vessel trips visiting Hong Kong. We have a very busy system, so Maritime Rescue Coordination Center and Rescue Center play very important roles. They are in charge of the coordination of rescue missions. Since 1980s, when Hong Kong joined as an affiliated associate member of the International Maritime Organization, the Coordination Center has been in charge of the search and rescue region, covering about 443,000 nautical miles of sea, covering the Philippines, Vietnam, Taiwan, etc. We have a duty under international convention to carry out the mission, so we need a sophisticated system to carry out our work. The current communication system was in place since 1999. It has been a core system of our center. It provides a conventional analog radio system round the clock for all vessels in the region. However, the system has been working for over 24 years. It is still effective, but it has exceeded its normal service reasonable life. Because of the aging of the system, it's very difficult to find parts. There is an urgent need to replace the system. The new system will be built on the existing system. We propose to use radio over Internet Protocol technology that can liaise with multiple radio stations, repeaters, consoles, which works to overcome a number of constraints and limitations. It will be more effective in helping us carry out our work. We think that it will enhance our rescue and coordination and search capabilities. We will be able to carry out our duties and responsibilities under international conventions for the region. We ask members to support our proposal. That's all for my presentation. We will be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Undersecretary, for the presentation. We have 3 members who have pressed the request to speak button. Well, 1 more now. Mr. Edmund Wong, Mr. Lai Tong-kwok, Mr. Chan Pui-leung, and Ms. Doreen Kong. I will assign a 4-minute time limit. Mr. Edmund Wong. Thank you, Chair. For the VHF, Very High Frequency Radio Communication System, it has been in use for 25 years. It is quite a number of years, and it is apparently beyond the service cycle of the system. We do see a need to replace the system. But I want to ask, for the new system, what is its service life cycle? And how long can its software be maintained for? So that we can make sure the new system can serve us for a longer period of time without additional funding. So that's my question, hardware and software life cycles. Thank you. The new system will be valid for at least 15 years. It won't be hard to maintain or repair the system. The Marine Department's electronic engineering team should be able to take up such work. The existing system is still quite effective in maritime search and rescue. We will convert part of it to digital, but the frontline operations will still be in analog. Thank you. Mr. Lai Tong-kwok. Thank you. I note in the paper that the system is aged and the supplier has stopped manufacturing the relevant parts and will not provide further maintenance. You expect the parts you have can last you 3 years, so there's a need to replace the current system. Even if you have the support of the panel and you can apply to the finance committee for funding, you actually still have 3 years in between. Can you start earlier? Because there may be something that would fail with the system within the 3 years. Honestly, we do not expect expect a lot of incidents, but if there is something wrong with your system, should there be an incident, it can be very bad. With the expenditure, one of the expenditure items is for project management. And in 2028-29, when the system is supposed to be delivered, it costs $1 billion, $1.1 billion. Is it the case that in future, after 28-29, you would still have to spend so much on the project management part of the system? I also note in 2026-27 for acceptance tests, for contingency, for 2027-28, you would be spending $610,000 on that. And then in 2028-29, you would be spending $1.39 million on this. It is weird that the contingency is not only allocated to the last year of the life of the 3 years. Why is that? And you also said you would be installing new equipment in some stations, and the repeaters are the stations new? If not, I just want to ask, for the equipment in 2027, you will have the delivery of the equipment. Why is it that in 2026-27 you're spending already so much on the equipment? Thank you. 3 questions, all of them on the expenditure items. Well, apart from the cash flow problems, the questions on which Mr. Kong will answer, I will answer the questions on the system. For the updates, we do have a rather robust system now already, but we need to make sure the system will be working smoothly in future. And if some components are not available in future, we will still be able to work with our current system, but it will be not desirable, of course. And then for the base stations at the hilltop sites, we already have stations and equipment there. We're just replacing certain parts. For project management, in 2028-29, it would be $1.11 million. And for 2028-29, it would be $1.39 million. For the specifics, why they are allocated that way, I will ask Mr. Kong, Felix Kong, to answer the questions. Can you turn on the microphone for Mr. Kong, please? Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Let me first talk about the costs for installation. For 2026-2027, for the 4 different remote hilltop sites, the radio base stations work will be intense because we need to put in place infrastructure. We also need to lay some cables. That would involve much in resources as well as manpower, so the costs will be higher. As for what is happening in the next year, we will only be installing the equipment, which is why we have allocated more of the cost in the first year, because the significant part of the cost would be in the infrastructure. As for contingency, we do anticipate that we need to undertake some improvement works. The works would have to be justified, of course. The improvement works should be necessary for the completion of the project, because according to the government's procurement guidelines, we need to incur expenditure only when necessary. These expenditure items will only be incurred at a later point in time, which is why we have allocated them to the end of this cycle. And this is just contingency. If we have anything left over, they will be returned to the Treasury. Thank you. All right, Undersecretary. Thank you. For the $4 million for project management, it will be over the whole life cycle. And we have the EMTSF staff working on this project that would include the inspectors as well as engineers from the relevant fund that will have to work on this project. And we have to also note that for this Electrical and Mechanical Services Trading Fund, EMSTF, the fund will be used to fund the relevant project management cost. Thank you. Mr. Chan Pui-leung, I have several questions about this system. We will convert the back end to make sure it will be working on digital technology, but the front end will still be using analog technology. How will this work exactly in operation? The recurrent expenditure will be similar to the current cost, which is $2 million per year. But the system will work more efficiently. Why is it the recurrent expenditure still as high as before? Because if it is working efficiently, the recurrent expenditure should be lower. And I also want to ask about some expenditure items. The $4 million project management cost is considered appropriate by the administration, but I think it is on the high side, because for the hardware, it would just be $18 million, and the project management is a significant part of this cost, around 20%. So do we need to use the EMSTF, the Electrical and Mechanical Services Trading Fund, for this? Do we need the staff from the fund for this? Can we have someone maybe from the outside that would incur lower staff costs for the operations? Thank you. Undersecretary, I would like to confirm what the member said. There is no need for change in operations with the replacement of technology. With the frequency calls, or the VHF can help, the radio technology will still be working the same way. And with the improvement in the system, it would ensure quality in communication. And we would use digital technology with the communication between base stations, and it is only on the front end that we would still be making use of analog technology. That should not affect our communications with vessels as a result. And we are going to maintain the service and the base station equipment at the hilltop sites. The recurrent expenditure will be mainly on this, so we will not incur a higher recurrent expenditure, and this will be subsumed under the expenditure for the Marine Department. I do note the member's suggestion on the electrical and mechanical services trading fund staff deployment, and I will communicate with the director for this. Well, I think the system is somewhat special, and we have some considerations for the system. National security is one apart from operational concerns. So with the consultant cost, I know for now that the EMSD staff will be competent, but I will work with the director to see if we can compress the staff costs a little.
多謝主席。
Ms. Doreen Kong. Mr. Chen Pui-Lang has asked most of my questions, but I still like to express my views. All in all, I support the replacement of the radio communication system. I think that the project management of $4 million should be greatly compressed. I understand that it's just passing from one department to another, but still, there is the benchmarking effect. We hope that we won't set the project management cost at such a high level. If it's just to handle tender, invitation, and assessment, I'm sure that in the private sector, the cost will be much lower. The other question is about the recurrent expenditure of $2 million a year. This in relation to maintenance and repair. I agree with what Mr. Chen Pui-Lang said. From what I've heard from the director, the work is taken up by the department themselves. But still, why is it so high? The annual maintenance costs about a tenth of the cost of the whole system. The director said that the system, the new one, will last for about a decade. If it costs 10% of the cost of the system to maintain it, I may as well buy a new one instead of maintaining it. If it costs $10,000 to buy a phone, will you spend $1,000 to maintain it every year? I have reservation in this regard. Perhaps we'll just replace the system more frequently instead of spending so much in maintaining it. I think that the concept is different. It's not about an old phone and a new phone. The system itself covers base stations at hilltops, as well as an integrated voice communication system. The new one will be radio over Internet protocol. That is, when the base station receives the shortwave radio, then it will be transformed into digital format and then transferred to another base station. On each hilltop station, say one at Tate's Cane, and the signal has to be sent to Lam Nong Shan. In the past, the system uses VHF, but now between base stations on hilltops, it will be done in a digital format before it's forwarded further. For the VHF analog voice signal, it can be transferred into a phone call, sent to an aircraft for the people on the ship to talk directly with the pilot. In the past, this cannot be done. in relation to maintenance and repair, it's not about a piece of equipment, but the entire system. It covers servicing and checking of all base stations on hilltops so that they will not, to make sure that they are not damaged by storms and rain, and also the hard wiring. For the old system, we spend about $2 million a year to maintain it. Regarding the new system, we think a reasonable service life is no less than 10 years. Well, for the old system, we thought that it would last us for about 15 years, but it was really well serviced and the system was operating steadily. We asked for a replacement not because the system becomes unstable. It's just that we no longer have analog components to repair the system. Next, Mr. Benson, look. This is a proposal to replace a VHF radio communication system. I support it in principle. The system has been in use for more than 25 years. It's aging. As the department said, that components becomes scarce and they are being phased out. However, we need to make sure that money is well spent. Members question about project management cost of $4 million. Well, the system cost $25 million and the project management is $4 million, about 16%. It's of a high level. I hope that you will have further discussion with the MSD to compress the cost. Is it possible for the Marine Department to absorb this part of work? Do they have sufficient manpower and suitable personnel to do it? Or do you really need the MSD? I note that the recurrent expenditure of the new system will be $2 million for preventive work as well as maintenance and repair. The work, is it done by the Marine Department? Any further roles played by the MSD in the future? Director. I understand members' concern about the high project management cost. I will talk to the director of the EMS further. Regarding the $2 million recurrent expenditure on maintenance and repair, it is indeed absorbed by the Marine Department. If you want to know about details of maintenance and repair, I will defer to Mr. Kong. Thank you for the question. The routine maintenance is taken up by a team in the Marine Department. $2 million includes material and pay for manpower. Now it's a replacement, one-for-one replacement to enhance the technology use. The number of stations remains unchanged. The estimate of the recurrent expenditure is the same, but in the long run, we will try to do much better. Well, apart from asking the EMSD to knock the price down, is there a chance that the Marine Department can take up the work? My understanding is that the Marine Department is in charge of the maintenance and repair of the system. They are in charge of the maintenance of the old system, so there is no room for them to spare an effort to maintain the new system. And we have to first let the new system run for a while before we can phase out the old system. We can't take any risk because we're talking about search and rescue. Mr. Lam Sanka. Well, I'm the fourth member asking a similar question. You don't need to answer my question. Well, as many members have asked a similar thing, it has drawn attention. Perhaps you can give us a written reply. I'm sure that you base this figure, 4 million, on previous ones. There will be concrete evidence. Just give us the past figures and information. Well, the four of us share the same view. We are surprised, but if you can show us that it's been done this way in the past and give us evidence, then it will appease us. Well, there will be different departments involved in search and rescue mission. When someone sends a distress call, or if the person has already left the waters of Hong Kong, then how do you coordinate the search and rescue mission? I will first answer the second part of the question. The Rescue Coordination Center covers not just Hong Kong waters. We are an associate member of the International Convention. We cover an area of 44,300 nautical miles extending to Taiwan, the Philippines, and the southern tip of Vietnam. So we are in charge of search and rescue in the entire South China Sea. That is our responsible area under the convention. Vessels using VHF radio communication systems, they will reach us unless there are problems with their communication system. But in addition to VHF radio communication system, there are other means to send out distress signal. Say, for example, a satellite phone and some other devices to make distress calls that is similar to a satellite phone. Are you going to answer the first part of the question? Detailed information to dispel concern? Well, the majority of the cost is for material and manpower. Next time, perhaps I'll bring the director of the EMS with me. Any other members who would like to ask questions? If not, that is the end of this discussion item. Majority of members express support to forward this proposal to the Finance Committee. Members have made some requests. Please talk to the Director of the EMS in relation to project management. I believe that will be a topic that is close to the heart of a lot of members in the Finance Committee. I think it's better for you to give us an answer before that. Item 5, any other business? There is none. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.